is a young Ray Benson, a little bit younger than now, putting on your first pair of custom boots.
Yeah, Nudie made those boots for me, and I gave him a hot $200 check and rushed back to the cover. That's when custom boots were $200.
Well, you know, let's start by talking about where you grew up and where you went to school and how you have this patchwork quilt of crazy, different, historic background.
Well, I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the birthplace of a lot of cowboy singers. Well, Don Edwards, but anyway. But yeah, you know, typical middle-class family. Father bought a suburban house. He was a first-generation American. Grandmother's from the Ukraine, from Kiev, and I said, yeah, my grandmother came here in 1890 on my father's side because the Russians burned her town. Wow. Some think they were changed. And, you know, so it was typical, born in 51, and you know, all the neighborhood was, everybody had a GI loan, and it was the first religiously integrated neighborhood. There still were no black people and no Hispanics. And that was the 50s. And we grew up with television, first generation to have television, you know. And everything was Roy Rogers, Gene Autry. We went to see Gene Autry go down at the TV station in 58 to see Gene Autry in Champion. So, and plus we were on the edge of horse country, so we rode horses. And it wasn't in Philadelphia per se, it was the suburbs, you know. So I got a guitar when I was 9, and my sister had one, and I figured out how to play it. And so we formed a group with some neighbors, as I tell people, you know, before cable TV and internet, you had to do something. So we had a folk group, started in 1960, called the 4Gs. The parents thought up the name. Bought us square dance outfits for the girls from the Sears catalog, and Hush Puppies and Chinos for the boys. And we sang This Land Is Your Land, Puff the Magic Dragon, all the folk songs, and we were so damn cute. And they sang well, although we never recorded. I know we recorded, but no, I've never found the tape. Because, and then in 1962, we were featured with the Philadelphia Orchestra in a concert. I sang with the Philadelphia Orchestra when I was 10 or 11. And sang folk music, sang This Land Is Your Land and On Top of Old Smoky. And so then I picked up the bass, and in school, we would, by the 8th grade, my mom said, hey, why don't you go, they were giving everybody lessons, why don't you go take up the bass? All my musician people are always looking for a bass player. So they gave me a bass and lessons, and I was playing there, and then they said, oh, you're big and you can read bass clef, and they gave me a tuba and gave me tuba lessons. So I played in the marching band and the orchestra and the brass band. So I love music, and I just wanted to play music. And I played in the jazz band, and I started to learn about swing music. But on the other side, I played in square dance bands, you know. So it's this weird combination of playing jazz and country music, and that's what led me to where I am, I guess.
That is really funny because Delbert's first performances were calling square dances.
Oh yeah.
So, you know, that was a thing. We forget about square dancing. But yeah.
Square dancing was for squares, but
but a lot
but
of
it's
really
a lot
cool
of
people.
fun. No. It was, I love square dancing.
A lot of really cool people grew out of that. So
It
who
was,
knows?
it was fun.
And you went to a Quaker school.
I went to Quaker schools and Quaker. My parents in the summer got, and so I would, so I went to Quaker meetings. And a friend of mine, Gerald Mann, is a Baptist preacher in Austin. He said, "You're the first Quaker Jew I ever met." Said it takes up Saturday and Sunday all day.
So then, tell me about the beginnings of your band life as we know it.
Well, I went to Antioch College. I was very lucky to go in this wonderful 1969, and I wanted to be a filmmaker. I mean, I love playing music, but I really, and Rod Serling was teaching a course, and I got into the school, and of course he left that year. But it was work-study programs. So you would go to school for 3 months, and then go out and work or do anything you want, life experience for 3 months. And they said, we need a apprentice editor in New York City to work on a Martin Luther King documentary with Eli Landau. This is the guy who made The Pawnbroker and Long Day's Journey in the Night. And I knew how to operate the machines. I was always a little technical. So I went to New York, made $80 cash a week, lived on the Lower East Side. And this movie, which is available, it's a 4-hour documentary called King, a filmed record, Montgomery to Memphis. And it starts in the Montgomery boycott into the assassination in Memphis. And in between all of King's speeches that were read by Sidney Poitier, Marlon Brando, Leslie Uggams, Paul Newman, all of these actors, that we would cut in the documentary footage of the civil rights movement. And it's an amazing, it is available. I just saw it's available online as a CD, and I bought it the other day because, and so at the end of working on all this, after my 4 months in New York, I said, I'm starting a band. Then I had it with the dark room, you go in, and it's funny because my other son is now a trailer editor. He's an editor doing exactly what I was going to do. And so my best pal, Lucky Oceans, was Reuben Gosfield, and my sister was going to school in Boston, and her friend Leroy Preston from Vermont, we hooked up and kind of jammed, and I said, come on guys, I'm going to form a band. And Lucky found some guys in West Virginia that had a farm, said we could come up and start a band at their farm and help them with the farm work. Now this is 1969 in Paw Paw, West Virginia. And I said that I was at school, and I said, yeah, we're going to go do this thing. And the Easy Rider had just come out. They said, you're going to get killed. You're crazy. And we had hair down to here, and we were post-hippie, whatever. I don't know. It was 1969, and we loved country music, and Merle Haggard and Hank Williams and Bob Wilson. So I said, oh, yeah, we're going to do this roots country band. It's going to be the Americana music, and so we'll go to West Virginia. And so we did. And we had this log cabin that was built in 1780 or something. There was a stage stop, and that was our way back in the hills. I mean, to get there, you had to be lost. And you got to remember, 1969, there were riots in the streets. There was the Vietnam War. There was still civil rights unrest, and said we got to get away from all this. And it was incredible. We got run out of there because the boys at the caretaking farm did not tell the owners that we were coming. And I had recruited one of the guys from school and his girlfriend, Eddie and Truffy. They had a band called Ed Chicken and the French Fries. And
You can't make this up.
No. And they came down with us, and so and then they left, and then we got run out of there, so we found this place on the Potomac. This was this old mansion that was down at the end of a long road from the Levels, West Virginia, outside of Romney, West Virginia. And we got this place, $50 a month. And it was an old mansion, and it was incredible, and we're living there, and one day, these 2 buses with hippies show up. Now, you could not get to this place unless you wanted to go. There was this mountain road that went down the hill. It was that wide and everything. All of a sudden, these 2 painted buses with the hog farm came. With Wavy Gravy and a few of the merry pranksters. So they're hanging out with us, and they say, we're going into Washington, D.C. with it was called the Medicine Ball Caravan. It was a famous Tom Donahue from KSAN in San Francisco. It was the last gasp of the hippie world. And Tom Donahue had put together this thing. They all had buses, and they're traveling all across the country, playing shows and free shows. And we're going into Washington, D.C., and Hot Tuna, Stone Ground, which was some of the Bo Brummels, so this is a 60s band. They formed this band, and Sal Valentine, and Hot Tuna was the head, and Stone Ground, and this new group was Alice Cooper. And you can open, and we didn't have a bass player, of course, I called somebody up in D.C. to learn. I said, here's a Johnny Cash song, Hank Williams song. Here's 2 songs we wrote and learned them. My brother was with us. He sang some harmony, and we played. And but before the show, I pulled my back out, loading gear, and one of the merry pranksters says, "Here, take this," and hands me a handful of peyote. It's 1970, cold. And so we're up there playing and everything, and people are getting off on it. It's amazing. We're doing truck driving songs and this, that, and the other. And this is our first time on a big stage, and then it's 45-minute set, around 40, it all hit. And I'm going, this is great. We finished, and I come backstage, and there's Al, this guy sitting there drinking a beer. He said, "Hey, really dig your band, man." I said, "Thanks, man. What's your name?" He said, "Alice."
And this is 1969.
70, yeah. And Alice, "Nice to meet you, Alice. So you got a band?" He said, "Yeah. What kind of music?" He said, "Oh, old time rock and roll." "Oh, okay." Well, they didn't play old time rock and roll. It was before he had no props. They were just starting. Chef Gordon was their roadie. He's become a good friend. If you ever read his book, Supermensch, it's a wonderful book. And he got on stage and did his act. I was like, whoa. What the hell did I just watch? And that was our first gig. We got known in D.C., in Washington, D.C. And all of a sudden, we had a place to play. So we go from Paw Paw down to D.C. and played at a place called The Emergency, and on M Street. And gosh, we would play with Nils Lofgren, who's with Springsteen, had a band called Grin. There was Claude Jones was one of the bands. Any of y'all around there? I don't know. I think everybody's dead from that time period. And Emmylou Harris used to come see us. She had just had a baby and was not professionally working. She was trying, and Billy O'Brien had this bar on Pennsylvania Avenue, and he took in itinerant singers and let us play. It held about 50 people, but I played there with this band called Fat City, and Bill and Taffy Niver, and they said, "Hey, we just wrote this song. You're from West Virginia. Check us out. Take me home, country road." They sang that to us in the basement and said, "You're from West Virginia?" I said, "Yeah, oh, cool, guys." The rest is history, the most oversung country song in the world. So that's our starting.
And the story continues. That's just the very beginning of it. As you moved through, he kept stumbling across people in the most unusual ways. One of the things you talk about in the book is kind of in the same chapter, I think, in the same chapter of your life. Janis Joplin, Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, I was still in high school, and a place in Philly called the Electric Factory, and they had, so one day they had the Grateful Dead's playing. So I go down to see the Grateful Dead, love the Grateful Dead, and it's 200 people. I mean, it was 68, I think. And the Dead were not huge by any means. And so Jerry comes walking off the stage, and I said, "Hey man, I really dig your show. You got a cigarette?" He said, "Yeah, here," and gives me a pack of Pall Malls. I was 17, so I took that, but I smoked the whole pack, and then I remember I went home and I took that pack and I put it right on the top of my Little League trophy. It said, "I'm not a kid anymore." And the place was amazing. I saw Cream there and whatnot. So Janis was there with Big Brother and the holding company, and just towards the end of until she changed bands, and it was amazing. It was just blew my mind. She was so incredible. So I'm hanging out the backstage door, and here comes Janis and their entourage, and they're in the car, and won't start. And I go, "Damn it!" And I said, "Hey, I know what's wrong with that car." Back in the day, they had the automatic choke, and I said, "Flip the hood, boom, go to the carburetor." "Okay, try it out." And she started, she goes, "Thanks, hon." But it's my brush with fame. Yeah, I was, down in San Marcos, one time they had me lecture at their graduate program on entrepreneurial marketing, they called it. And I said, man, so I'm talking to these kids, and I said, entrepreneurial marketing, let me tell you about it. It's called hanging out.
Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes they need to get a little touch of reality from people who've done it the right way. So Washington, California.
Well, Commander Cody had come to Antioch to play, and they stayed in my apartment. We had great friends. And I said, I'm going to start a band. And they said, well, here's the manager's number. Come on out to California. And so after we had built up a little bit of a following, and in '71, I called up Joe Kerr and said, hey, we want to come out to California. He said, come on out, you can stay. So I bought a '61 Caddy for $250 and a Ford truck, and one of the local pawpaw guys. This became our roadie. And we hightailed it out to California in August of '71. And boy, was that culture shock. We were organic farming. We were living in the country. You know, friends of ours who like to kill things would bring us deer. And so we learned, we learned how to, butcher deer and tan hides, just did all that stuff, the whole earth catalog, get back to the earth. And so we go leave all of this idyllic, country living into Berkeley, Oakland, California, which was cocaine cowboys and rock and roll, But it was incredible. And we started playing, and Cody would help us out. And then we started hanging out and playing with Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks, and Elvin Bishop had band, and Tower of Power, and we were the country band, And then we started gravitating more towards Western swing, but we still couldn't make any money. So we auditioned for this country singer named Stoney Edwards, and he was a black country singer that was amazing, and we became his band in '71. A black country singer with a hippie Western band. And we got these Western suits for 20. We bought them at an auction in Reno from Judy Lynn, which was a club band, and went on the road and wound up backing up everybody. Backed up Freddie Hart when Easy Lovin' was #1. We were the Heartbeats. We backed up Connie Smith. We backed up Dickie Lee. We wrote She Thinks I Still Care. Stoney Edwards, Dave Dudley. And we made our bones, and figured that out, and came home a much wiser and a much more seasoned band, and wound up getting a record deal, with United Artists Records.
Can we get some water if there's a bar open up there? Can we get a couple of, there's not a bar? Okay. Well, maybe there'll be a waiter who comes through. He can bring us water, because I forgot to get some before we came out. So there you are in California. You got a record deal, the first record.
It was really cool. This guy Dan Burgoyes, who later started Bug Music, came up with Del Shannon, and Del had run away, run, and hats off to Larry. And Del was a big country music fan, and we made this demo, and we'd make demos. And back then, there was 40 record companies, and they would all come down. You do a demo and get a free dinner, Yeah, we did this. So anyway, we got this record deal. But that was ridiculous, because they didn't want us. And the guy, Dan, had just signed Electric Light Orchestra, and so they had a big hit. So so the head of A&R there said, I walked into the thing, and we were hoping to get $5,000 to make a record. I was like, okay. And I walk in, the guy goes, okay, we're going to give you $25,000 and $20,000 to make the record. How does that sound? I go, I couldn't talk. $25,000. Well, it turned out he wanted to kill the deal, and he figured the president of record company's never going to go for this. But they had just had a big hit on the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band's Circle Be Unbroken record, and I think the music business works this way. The Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. Get me another funny name country band with long hair. And that was us. We were so fortunate, and they argued their way through this, and all of a sudden we had more money than we'd ever seen, and a $20,000 budget. And they said, where do you, and I forgot to mention, 6 months before, Van Morrison calls up and goes, "I love your band. I want to produce your record." And I went, "Oh, cool." So we went and opened a few shows for Van. He had come down to the Long Branch Club where we played because he loved country music. And, it's a long story, but anyway, so the hype was big. And I think they mentioned us, Van mentioned us as Rolling Stone, put us on shows and everything, but some of the band didn't want him to do it. And so I said, okay, well, what are we going to do? And so we wound up getting that deal, went to Nashville, and Buddy Spiker, we played on the DJ show, and we said, we need a producer. And he said, Tommy Austin. Tommy would play guitar for Buddy Holly and worked for Bob Wills and whatnot. That's who produced our first album.
Tell us a little bit about Tommy Austin.
Tommy was an Indian from Oklahoma and played guitar, played in all the Western swing bands. And when Sonny Curtis quit Buddy Holly's band, Sonny was the lead player. And he later went on to write the Mary Tyler Moore theme. I fought the law and the law won. So Sonny did fine. But Buddy wouldn't give him a raise. So Sonny quit and went to work for Slim Whitman for $25 more a week. And Tommy was playing with the Western Swing Band in Dallas, one of Hank Thompson's, I can't remember the name, but and so Buddy hired him because he was one of the top guitar players in Texas, but a Western Swing Band. And I asked Tommy, I said, gee, you went from Western Swing Band to Buddy Holly. What'd you do? He said, oh, all I did different was I bought a Stratocaster and turned the treble all the way up. I went, wow. And Tommy was wonderful. He really helped us, show us, how we, and let us do what we did, as opposed to try to take us to Nashville, which that came later. So we were able to play Western Swing, and the folks would come to this is 72. All the old timers would come because we used a lap steel, not a pedal steel sometimes. We also had pedal steel, but we played old music at an upright bass and played old music. Taking back to Tulsa, Bob Wilson was our first record, and we did Ernest Tubb songs and wrote our own. And all these old guys come up and we go, your record company's letting you do that? And the record was a total flop.
Well, and the reason you got to work with Tommy Austin was a flip of the coin, as I understand.
Well, yeah, the story of Buddy Holly's thing was Tommy was on the plane and what's his name, the La Bamba singer,
Ricky
Valens was sick. And he said, Rick, why don't you let Rick, he says, well, let's flip a coin. They flip a coin and he lost. So Richie got on the plane and Tommy didn't. I said to Tommy, what'd you say, man? Were you pissed off? I said, remember the Alamo. Just quoting. He was pissed off, luckily it saved his life. And so, yeah, and of course the bass player was Waylon Jennings. Waylon was 16 or 17. And
now you had, speaking of close calls, you've had a few close calls with Asleep at the Wheel along the way. Tell us first a little bit about Pumpkin, and then we're going to talk about Chicago. Well, there are a lot of close calls involved in Pumpkin, but tell us one or two.
Pumpkin is a Tulsa guy, and he was our bus driver first. And look, nowadays it drives us crazy, but the DOT has rules, and so if you have a bus drivers are only allowed to drive for X amount of hours. And thing. Well, back in them days, I drove the bus, and I can't believe I did. And plus it was a double clutch employee. You had to know how to do this stuff. Plus they broke every day. We had one of them double-decker Greyhound buses. Cost $12,500 from Greyhound because it was worn out. So Punk was our bus driver, and then we made no money. And whenever we made a little bit more money, we'd hire another musician. So we were like a 10 or 12 piece band, jammed on this one bus with a bunch of, and everybody smoked pot, and half of us did coke, and everybody drank. So it was a rolling party. And luckily, you know, it got straight after a while. And then Punkin wound up, he became Dwight Yoakam's road manager, butt boy, I call him. But, Dwight.
Tell me about Chicago.
Well, you know, we're rolling down the road and it's just a party. Mary Ann Price was in the band. She was one of the hot licks in Dan Hicks' band. She had joined the band, and we get pulled over, and this guy, I think Punkin was hanging out of the window of the bus or something while driving. I mean, we were insane. And they pull us over, and a plainclothes cop comes on the bus and goes, "This is a bus of inequity." And I'm going, I think we flushed whatever we had down the toilet to go. And the guy goes, "If I took you in, I'd be filling out papers for fucking days." And let us go. And you know, again, I don't do coke. I did through the 70s. Everybody did, and then found out, now this stuff sucks, and so but we all smoke pot, and it was, you know, still it's a lot better now, but back then it was like, you know, that's when we talked about the outlaw movement, you know, Waylon, Willie, us, everybody, it was really about pot and that, because that's what was illegal.
That was the outlaw.
Yeah, literally, and of course the outlaw part of it was playing our own kind of music and not doing the slicked up Nashville stuff too. But it was just lifestyle, and you know, we were very fortunate to survive because it was really dangerous stuff that we were doing. And you know, so there was a lot of casualties along the way, and I have to say that I always said, though, you know, about drugs was that I said, personally, I was, and we were not doing drugs to get away from them. We were doing drugs to find new stuff. You know, it wasn't this, you know, that kind. It was different. It was. On the other hand, it's a lot of dead ends to that journey sometimes.
Well, and you went to Nashville. You were supposed to play a CMA 25th anniversary or some sort of event, and Willie and Christopherson and you're getting ready to play.
Oh, that, okay. Well, that had nothing to do. No, what happened was it was a big CMA show, and all of a sudden they said, "Well, Nancy Reagan's going to come here and talk about the Just Say No." And to that end, the producers say, "Since she's coming, we don't have time. You're not playing." It had nothing to do with us being. This was not about it. It was a time thing. I went, but we don't worry, man. We'll put you on the Grammys or something. And so I go to the bus, and Willie and Christopherson are on the bus, and I said, "Hey, Will, Chris, we're not playing. Nancy Reagan's here doing a Just Say No thing, so they didn't have time for us." They went, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, well, I'll see you back in Austin." He said, "Well, tell them we're not going on either." And so, that's Chris and Willie. I mean, the greatest, you know, camaraderie that I could ever imagine. And so the producers were, wow. And so we played. You know. And, you know, like I say, I told you, my next book is 6 Degrees of Willie, it's called, because I met Willie in 1971 on that road trip where we were backing up all those people, and he came to one of the shows, and the guy said, he said, "Hey, have you been paid?" I said, "No, but he's going to pay us next week." He never did. Willie goes to this guy and says, "You got the money?" No. And so they didn't even play. You know, that's when I first met him. So anyway, they and Chris, they were the same thing. They were just such great friends and such integrity, you know.
you've really led a magical life, and I
Oh,
can't wait
yeah,
for the
right.
next chapter and the next book. It's going to be wonderful. There have been a few other close calls in the, I can't imagine how many miles you've gone asleep at the wheel. But tell us about Mount St. Helens.
It was 1980, I think. And so we're about, oh yeah, that's right. So we're in California and we're going to go up and play in Spokane. Pumpkin was driving the bus. His mom's dying, so he goes back to Oklahoma. I'm driving the bus. We're driving up the coast, and Chris and Marianne were the two gals that were singing it, and they're going nuts. I don't know what the hell. And oh, I know. And Danny Levin, the fiddle player, quit that night without telling anybody. And we're going to the bus. Where's Danny? Oh, he left. So he went home. So I called up a friend, Paul Anastasio in Portland. I said, "Can you jump on the bus and play fiddle?" And he said, "Sure." So I'm driving up the coast. We pick him up. I'm driving towards Spokane, and I hear and I go past Mount St. Helens. I said, "That's that volcano." They said, "It's kind of smoking." Yeah. We pull into Spokane at 8 in the morning, 8:15, and I hear this boom. This is 200 miles away. But that must be doing demolition. I go to bed. I've just driven all night. I wake up at 2 p.m. and it's pitch black. It's 72 degrees and it's snowing. Ash. And I go, "What the hell?" And I pick up the phone. It's dead. I go, it's like, well, I thought it was 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd missed the gig. Oh my God, Mount St. Helens has erupted and it blew all of the thing. We get stranded in Spokane for 3 days, canceled the gigs in Portland and Seattle, or rescheduled. Finally, I said, "Okay, we're going to go." And so I don't know if you know the geography, I think you go out Yakima, you can go on the interstate. Well, no, you couldn't because the cloud was there. They said, "Just go north of the cloud." It's a 12 hours instead of 6 or whatever. So we do, making the thing, play the gig, etc. And 2 weeks later, and we had played that night in Spokane, and when this dust, which is silica, comes up and everything, a month later the bus engine blows up. Every speaker and every amp blows up because they move and this is glass in there. And we figured it was $25,000-$30,000 worth of damage back in there, and barely made it because the guy said, "There's all this gray sludge and every bearing in your engine has been ground down." And it was crazy. I still have a bottle of the volcanic dust on my desk.
Out of an amp or a guitar.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was just a disaster.
Well,
we were also there near Harrisburg, PA, when they vented the gas on the 3 Mile Island. That's when I should have quit.
we're glad you did.
Disaster tour number 1.
Tell us about Marianne's, and tell us about Vegas, because you.
Oh, it wasn't Vegas, it was Tahoe.
Oh, Tahoe, okay.
Well, this guy, Stu Carnell, he booked Willie and Charlie Daniels, and he had been Bob Will's manager, and he was a booker in just for Reno, Tahoe, and loved us, so he booked us there. We were the first country western band that didn't have uniforms. Back then, if you played the Silver Circuit, they called it, Reno, Tahoe, Winnemucca, State Line, Vegas, if you're lucky, you had to have uniforms. Well, we didn't. So that was the first thing. And we would play in the lounge, you do 6 shows, 6 days, 2 on the weekend and 3 on the weekends. And we used to we still do the old, I'm an old cowhand from the Rio Grande, old Bing Crosby song. And so Marianne would sing it and she'd go, "'Cause my legs ain't bowed and my cheeks ain't tan," and she'd pull her dress up, but she didn't wear any panties. So we got fired for that. I figured they'd pay us extra for that. So we got fired, and then 2 years later got hired back. So we would work that whole circuit, Reno, Tahoe, And really, you know, at some point at this whole discussion, we owed the government $180,000. And luckily, Reno and Tahoe, I would work there and made good money, and I was able to slowly pay the IRS back. And also, it was great training. You know, 6 days a week. We worked with the Fifth Dimension, with comedians, with the best act I ever saw was a ventriloquist. And he's doing his act, regular ventriloquist. That was really great, you know, 25 minutes and drinks, you know, they drink water. It's great. And at the end of the act, the dummy stands up and walks off. It was a small person, and it was like kind of act you only go see once. It was incredible. Oh God, I mean, when Sammy Davis Jr. would come backstage to meet dancers or something, and get to meet all these guys, and Merle Haggard would be in the main room, so his band would come down and jam. It was such an education. And on the weekends, you had to do 3 shows. The last one would start either at 1, or if you're not too, 2. Yeah, I still remember one that had a curtain. You know, now, ladies and gentlemen, Reno, Lake Tahoe proudly presents us Sleep at the Wheel. One person. And he's drunk as shit. Gotta do a 1-hour show.
So, you know, through all of this, how many records have you made?
I think 30. I don't know, something like that.
And the most recent one is?
Half 100 years.
Half 100.
Yeah,
I could've
it's.
told
Well, actually, no. Yeah, I guess that is the last one. That was a record. 2020 was the 50th anniversary. We're going to have. You know, there's been 100 alumni on Asleep at the Wheel, and the incredible alumni. And so we were getting. They're all over the globe. So they're all coming in March the 7th, 2020. Like the whole world stopped. I had a film crew had a record. We were, you know, about to make a record. Lucky's coming from Australia, Chris from California, Leroy from Vermont, Larry from Nashville, so and so from Toronto, and nobody came. Obviously, you know what happened. And then a week and a half later, I'm doing one of those live streams for Willie at Luck, Texas, and the next day I get COVID. But there are no tests in Austin, Texas, because you know. And, so I didn't even know it, but I'm sick as a dog, and they say, no, you don't have the flu. You know, 5 days later, I'm still sick as a dog, so I go in, and they finally find a test, and they say, you got COVID, you know, stay home. You know, but the week before, I'm out there spreading the disease, because they didn't know, and they didn't tell me. And so got over that, and then we made the record with I had sold the real estate of my recording studio, but I had all the gear, and we'd set it up in my house, and it still is, and we still make records there. And so we were able, because our engineers figured out all this stuff, to record all these people zooming in to our sessions, and made the record. And then I got George Strait to sing with us, and Willie to sing with us, and Leanne Womack sang with us. And it's a really cool record. And then I wrote a lot, you know, as all of us were doing, you know, the same thing, sitting on our ass trying to figure out what we're going to do next or how to. And so I wound up writing this stuff. I wrote a song called Better Times, right in the middle of the pandemic, about how this is all going to be okay, kids. And so I guess that was an EP. So there was, you know, it just kept busy.
And that was really hard for a lot of musicians, because the world did stop, as it did for everyone else. But you weren't getting to go out, which meant they weren't getting paid to do things. And so it really was, everyone looked for things to do. And, I'm just so grateful that Ray had so many projects in his head. He always does. You've got archives up at Texas State University. Tell us a little bit about some of those.
Bill Whitliff, who some of you know Bill was a writer. Wrote The Perfect Storm. He wrote. He did the Western Lonesome Dove. He produced that. And Legends of the Fall. He's just an amazing guy, and he set up this thing. It's in San Marcos at Texas State. So they said, we want your papers in. So I said, okay, here you go. And I had kept every calendar from 1972 till computers 84. Dates, how much we made, and then all the scribbling that goes on, you know, in one of those calendars that we all used to have. And it was amazing. You know, they digitized them all, and it's like, because they said, we want to know what was going on in Austin, Texas in the 70s. If 50 years from now somebody wants to know, he says, this will show you. Yeah, we made $300 to play her husband's club. We thought we made it. The Cheatham Street Warehouse in San Marcos. Yeah. Both George Strait and us, George started there, we all thought, and I said, man, we thought we made it when we played that club, you know. But Marcia Ball, I remember, I found an advertisement for the Two Bitter, which was on the square. You know, Marcia Ball, $1.50. Asleep at the wheel, $2. We had more people in the band.
I think Marcia played every grand opening because we kept selling it and owner financing it and getting it back. And so she played 4 grand openings. But it was great because you guys were magic. It was its own world. And it's great to think about the fact that you guys would play one night, George would play another night. When the Two Bitter closed, we'd have Stevie Ray Vaughan on Tuesdays, Ladies Free. And George played Ladies Free on Wednesdays. And then on the big nights, we'd get people like Ray. The first contract that we ever had at Cheatham Street for a musician was Asleep at the Wheel. And so we read it and said, okay, they want water and beer and whatever else they want to drink and $300. And so, okay, we've got to make $300. So we had to do math and figure out how many people had to come for $300. And it was great. I think it was 300 or 80% of the door. I bet you got 80%.
Yeah, I know it was packed. And then we played 78. Well, 75, Pat Moloch had bought Green Hall, and so he hired us for $2,500. We had a hit record that year on the letter that Johnny Walker read. And Pat said, oh my, same thing, he was sweating bullets. Am I going to lose my ass? You know, and of course all the San Marcos people came down. But Green was a ghost town. I mean, it was just the bed and breakfast place, and that was it, I think. And 78, I still remember my guitar got stolen in Houston the night before, and some guy had found it and brought it back to me. And I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm saying, oh, thank goodness, I still have the guitar. And he said, and there was a band playing in there, and they were doing Johnny Bush tunes, and I was, what's the name of that band? They said, oh, it's called Ace and Hole. I don't know. I said, oh, cool. And it was George, you know. And now we open for him. If we're lucky.
It's wonderful because as George retired, I see that you guys do a lot of things together. You play golf, you hang out. Tell us a little bit about how you guys reconnected when you both had a little more time.
Well, you know, after George's daughter died, he kind of, stopped seeing people. I don't know, he just called up one day and said, hey, we want you to play these stadium shows, So we did all these stadium shows with him, and that went on for a while, and now we do a golf tournament for wounded soldiers, and he's on the record, and he sang on our 50th. The new album is a live one from the 50th anniversary tour, and I know he did. I think he sang Right or Wrong with us. That's on the record, yeah. But we were both of the young bunch. There was besides, we all played honky tonk music. We all played boogie. Different things, but we both played Bob Wills music, and that was what was so different about. We were the only two besides Merle Haggard, that was doing Bob Wills the right way.
That's right. We've got a little bit more time. Talk about Willie.
Yeah, Willie. I wouldn't be here. I'd probably have a job doing something. But Willie, I met him, as I said, in '71 on that tour, and And then we put out the record, and we're playing in Dallas, and he came down with Richie Albright, Waylon's drummer, and B. Spears, and said, I heard there was this weird band that playing Bob Wills music, and we smoked a joint on the bus and been friends ever since. Smoke 'em peace pipe. And what can I say? You know, in 82, we had lost our record deal, and I didn't get another record deal till 86. And Willie was bigger than shit. I mean, 83, 4, he was just exploding, and bought the golf course and everything out there in Pernalis. And I mean, he would, you know, he said, whenever you want, just go to the studio. You know, so we'd go in, cut music. Nobody wanted it. For 4 years, cut. You know, never charged us a cent. Gave me one time. He said, "Here, you need some money?" I said, "Well, of course." Here, it's 10 grand. Go ahead. We'll get it back when you make the record deal. We never made a record deal. And that's Willie, the most generous human being on earth. Not just me. Kimmy Rose will tell you. Everybody in this boat that had any contact with Willie would tell you. And so we just became great friends because I played golf and he played golf and we played music and smoked pot. And those three things unite us. And so we made. I mean, I have to count up all the things we've done. But one of the best things, so we, you know, and all those experiences was Jerry Wexler, the founder of Atlantic Records, producer of Aretha Franklin, Bob Dylan, etc., Doug Somm, always wanted to make a Western swing record with Willie. And he was 90 years old and not doing well, and he called up Mark Rothbaum, Willie's, and said, I want to sleep at the wheel to do a record with Western swing tunes, and sent me a bunch of LPs of Bob Wills reissues with WN next to songs Willie Nelson. These are the songs I want to do. So we did a record called Willie and the Wheel, and that was about 14 years ago. And then we did a TV show. I put together a 12-piece band with fiddles, horns, saxes, clarinets, etc. And went on a road, and then we filmed. I guess we did the Letterman show, and we did an Austin City Limits, and it was half just Willie Nelson with an incredible band doing Willie stuff, because it's typical Willie. So we're doing all these Western swing tunes, or you know, all this 20s and 30s stuff, really cool stuff. And I said, and then so the first show we're in Red Bank, New Jersey, teleprompter with everything. We're going to do these 5 songs, and then we'll go into Willie Nelson show with all the Willie songs. Willie walks on stage, and the first thing he does, because it's the first thing he does every show, Whiskey River, take my mind. Follow Willie. And goes through the thing and then goes, are we doing it right? Yeah, it's on the teleprompter. and it was just amazing. I mean, it was the highlight of and then a few years later, Rothbaum calls up and says, hey, we want to do this thing called the Last of the Breed tour. It'll be Merle Haggard, Ray Price, Willie Nelson, and you'll be the band. And I went, oh boy. And that was incredible. Made a record and a TV show. And it was,
there's a lot of luck involved in that.
Well, yeah, it was for, you know, Branch Rickey was the guy who integrated baseball, hired Jackie Robinson, and I heard this quote 50 years ago, and he said, luck is the residue of design.
Think, design, plan,
Yeah.
and luck is the residue. Well, you've been on this cruise a lot of times. You and Delbert are longtime friends. And as things are moving into a new direction, we're glad you're staying the same course, and we've got you on board.
Oh, thank you. Was anybody here on the disaster boat when the weather was horrible?
Yeah.
There you go. What year was that?
Can't remember.
I don't know. It was 40-foot waves for 4 days. Such bad weather that the boat couldn't dock in San Juan, or one of the, you know, what we're doing. You stop at these different places. No, and there was 80% of the boat was sick. laying in the aisles. In the dining room, you go along, and all the stuff would fly off the tables. It was the worst weather I've ever seen. I said we'd never do another cruise.
What have we forgot to talk about?
Shoot, I don't know. It's just been a pleasure. I mean, without you know, I've had over 100 people in the band. We've toured with Dylan and George and Willie, and it's just amazing. And I did a television show, the Texas music scene, for 7 years. Showcasing the Texas Red Dirt guys and trying to get that whole thing going. And we did the first Austin City Limits television show. Joe Gracie was the first booker. He and I were roommates before he met Kimmy. And he got the job of booking the first Austin City Limits show. And Willie had done the pilot, and we were the first band. And I remember Paul Bosner was the director. He was from New York. And he said, "Who do you want to open the show?" I said, "The Texas Playboys." Bob Wills is in the hospital. He won't, but the Playboys are still incredible. And he said, "Okay, we'll let them do 10 minutes." I said, No. They're going to headline. And that show is in the Smithsonian, I know, because it was the first Austin City Limits. We've done, I think, 13 of them. And that's and I got a new TV show I haven't announced yet, but when we get it, I'm going to be doing another Texas music show on a certain channels.
Yay. We want to stop now, so that there were several people who wanted their caps signed, and I know Ray has to be somewhere in 30 minutes.
I do?
Yeah. I was just giving you a...
Oh, well, I'd rather...
He's going to be here all day.
Yeah.
If you'd like him to go to your room and visit.